Are you ready for it?
I'm ready. Are you ready for it?
Hi everyone! Welcome back to Four Teachers. Ooh. In today's video, we thought we would finally address all the questions that we've been asked recently about where we are teaching and if you guys would like to get a job teaching abroad, what our experience of the journey has been, why we've chosen to move abroad, and just a little bit of background information about teaching internationally.
So first we're going to talk about our background information. As you've seen in our previous videos, we've talked about where we used to work. We both used to work in a school in Manchester.
Yep.
So now we're going to talk a little bit more about how we got to Hong Kong and where did our journey begin. So Katie, tell us a little bit about how many years were you teaching in the UK, first of all?
I was teaching for 3 years in a school in the UK. I always knew I wanted to teach abroad. It was always on the list. It was just when it felt right to move abroad.
Did you have any particular countries in mind or areas you'd like to teach?
Yeah, I had Singapore was on the list, Hong Kong was on the list. I'd been recommended places like Oman and Dubai because I think the wage is really high, but I did want somewhere that was a little bit Western as well, somewhere with kind of a few links to home because it was going to be my first time moving abroad and I really wanted it to be somewhere that was kind of like for beginners, and Hong Kong is quite Western. What about you, Ryan? You were working in the UK for how many years before applying?
So I'd done about 3 or 4 years teaching, but I'd previously also taught in Japan. I taught English as a foreign language.
Yep.
So I kind of worked in a language school and I taught children and babies.
We have a friend who was from Hong Kong and she kept saying to us, oh, why don't you guys move abroad? You get paid so much more, there's more work-life balance, and we are going to talk about that in a minute as well. We were really tempted by it, and then we just all applied for the same jobs as a group of us, and we went through the same process, which was really nice because it was like a group of teachers doing the same applications and kind of giving each other tips and suggestions and letting each other know how interviews were going as well. I think was a really nice thing.
Where did we look for jobs? Because
Yeah.
I am appalling at looking for things.
I get
so I
asked
let
this all the
other
time.
people look for jobs and then go for it. So where did you look for jobs for us all?
Where did I find us all jobs?
Yeah.
The main website that we used was TES. The job listings pop up on there quite a lot. I just like to look at them anyway because it's really interesting, and quite a lot of jobs were appearing for Hong Kong.
Yeah, they list all the different schools in different areas as well, so it's worth clicking in and seeing different continents, seeing how many jobs come up. If you're looking to teach internationally and you are from Britain, it's very rare that you would find a job, for instance, in Australia or America, because there's already a lot of English speakers there. You're not necessarily in a great commodity. Whereas in Asia, where a lot of people want to speak British English or they want to learn the British curriculum or different curriculums but taught by British teachers, it's really useful. So there are a lot more jobs for Asian schools. We had our hearts set on Hong Kong because that's where our friends were working and living, so we kind of were just focused and narrow-minded about Hong Kong, but do take a look around and see what's out there, I would advise. So in around October, November, you need to be online looking for these jobs, and they normally have open-ended applications for about a month. So you need to get your applications in by the end of October, November, and then you'll be called for interview in around January.
In Hong Kong, there's a collection of schools called ESF schools, and they put up their application really early. You have to get in on that really, really quickly, don't you?
Yeah.
They have like a portal that opens and you can throw your application out to different schools. I think I actually missed that. You think you got in on it?
I think what they have is, because they've got so many branches and so many schools, you just fill in the one application and then you kind of tick the ones that you want to go to, and they will help facilitate that for you.
I think the first interview that I had was directly after Christmas, and that was in London.
We were kind of each other's competition.
Yeah, it was really scary.
We did kind of all applying for the same jobs.
Yeah, we had interviews in the same school. There was 5 of us up for the same jobs. So just be aware that if you are moving with friends, you might be put in that situation. But if you're pretty good friends with someone, it's not a problem. It's not competition. It's just you need to kind of help each other out and put applications out to as many places as you can, because some schools, they like couples applying, they like friends applying, they like having a group, but other schools might be a bit more standoffish about that and think they would prefer to pick individuals from different schools.
Often with the schools in Hong Kong, you are contracted for 2 years. There is a big commitment straight off. You're moving halfway around the world, and they do pay a little bit for your flights or your teleportation, what do we call it? So all the schools are different and they all have different plans of how to get you over here and how to help you out. Some support you with rent, some support you with the flight costs. So they do pay a lot to get you here and they kind of want you to commit. So that's why they sign you up for 2 years minimum, I would say.
And we will talk about wages in a minute, but just before we go on to that, Ryan went to, and correct me if I'm wrong, went to like a job fair where there was lots of different schools and you could sort of walk around like speed dating. And you could sit with with each table.
So I applied to one school, and then when I went to it was based in a hotel in London, I found out that the company was huge. They have around 50 schools around the world, and it was very much open house. If you wanted to go to Costa Rica, you could go and sit in on that meeting and apply to Costa Rica.
Oh, so it's a bit of everything.
Yeah, if you wanted to go to New York, if you wanted to go to Hong Kong. I was quite lucky that I got the first job, but between having the first interview and taking that post, I then had a few other interviews in between. In the UK, you tend to go for an interview and you find out that afternoon. Saying in our previous video, I was walking home from the interview, got a call that I'd got the job.
Sometimes you have to wait a really long time.
Yeah, and I think for the Hong Kong schools, you have to bear in mind that people are applying from around the world. It is a large process to go through.
One of the schools that I applied for and I didn't actually get the job, I had to do an online interview. Maybe I'll have to do a whole sub video on this because it was really tricky, because the interview was almost talking to myself, so I had to do a video interview, but there was no one on the receiving end. So it was I guess making these videos.
We're way more used to it now.
I'd be fine at it now. At the time it was really, really scary because I had to talk to a video of myself. Back then it was really hard, and I remember being able to see the audio bouncing, and I didn't know if I was talking too loud, and I didn't know if I'd used up the right amount of time, and I didn't sell myself well. It wasn't representative of who I was. Skip forward a couple of months, I caught a smaller independent school had put up an ad on TES. They listed and it said it was for early years, but I was like, oh, I'll have a look anyway. When I clicked through, it then said primary. So I would just say, email schools if you're not sure and just ask and say, do you have anything open? Is there anything still going? Because I got my job quite late, but it ended up being really, really perfect for me.
Schools in a foreign country can seem very prestigious, and you kind of think, oh, I don't want to bother them, or they're such a giant company.
Why would they want me?
Yeah, that are universal, that why would they pay attention to my little email? But actually, they're just like the schools in the UK. People are going on maternity all the time. People need supply cover.
People leave a lot as well because it's international.
So we've talked a little bit about the application process. The interview process is very similar to how it is in any interview. You're going to ask the same kind of questions. You're going to talk about yourself.
When I interviewed, I was asked about a different curriculum, not one that I had qualified in. I was asked questions about the PYP IB curriculum, and I didn't really know anything about it, so I had to do a lot of research before I did my interview. Even if you don't know anything about it, which is fine because I didn't have any qualifications in this, I just had to talk the talk. I just had to say, I'm willing to learn. This is what I found out. Schools are quite forgiving. They're asking for teachers to come from the UK, so they are expecting that you've learned to teach the British curriculum. It's pretty normal. So which subjects do you teach in your school?
Yeah, I think it's worth knowing that you're going to teach just the core subjects perhaps. So I teach maths and English, and English is split between writing and reading, so that's 15 lessons a week, and then I just teach 6 extra periods, and with those periods I teach theme, which is science, computing, geography and history.
It's a little bit different for Ryan and I, so it's not completely going to cross over, but for me personally, I don't teach Chinese. I can't. I can try. I don't teach my music lessons, my PE lessons, my library lessons, which means that during those times I actually get a free period, which is kind of unheard of in the UK, and it does kind of equal a better life balance because you have some free time and you might be expected to cover a class, you might have a meeting and, stuff to do with that time. It is quite nice in comparison to the UK because you just get a little bit of time to just plan and assess and mark and get things sorted that you don't normally find time for in the UK.
And it's great for the kids because they get a more broad curriculum taught by specialists. The teachers get there around 7 o'clock. The children are in from 7:30, but then school starts about 8:15, and we do 7 periods a day, and then we're finished by 2:45, which is awesome. And then we contracted to stay in school till 4 o'clock. So you've still got an hour and a half to get your marking and your planning done after school, and then 4 o'clock we can leave.
Yeah. Teaching internationally is just going to be different depending on the school you go to, but generally it seems as though people start earlier, perhaps are able to leave earlier, and the biggest part for me is you don't take as much work home. So the final part of the video that we wanted to talk about are the real perks of living abroad, the real reasons, the juicy bit, why it's such a desirable job to have and why we plan on staying longer than we initially planned to stay out here.
Yeah, not only are you an international teacher, you've become more internationally minded, I think. So it kind of broadens your horizons a lot. And I remember before we got here, we used to be so envious of our friend who lived in Hong Kong who would show us it's 5 p.m. and I'm on the beach or I'm at the harbour in Hong Kong. The flights are a lot cheaper from Hong Kong to other destinations. So if you're planning just 2 years minimum in Hong Kong, you can get to a lot of other places.
We can't speak for all schools. We will not even try to speak for all schools, but the general idea is that if you were to move to a place in Asia and work in a well-known international school, your wage will be higher. I get paid at least double, in fact over double, what I used to get paid in the UK.
Yeah. We worked it out when we were in the UK, and we worked out that we were going to get almost triple the salary that we would in the UK. I think it's worth bearing in mind that different countries pay different rates, and I think Hong Kong particularly and the Middle East are known for paying the highest. But I think the rate and the cost of living are more expensive in Hong Kong. So yeah, if you want to go for a Marks and Spencer sandwich, we tend to pay about £9. I would say £9.
It's like £9. It's like a pot of hummus in Marks and Spencer's. It's like £6.50. So yes, the cost of living is really high. How do we get onto hummus?
Because food has been exported and clothes.
Everything's
if
expensive.
You want to get a pair of male shoes, it's about £100 or $1,000 in Hong Kong, so it's really hard.
Your wages double to triple,
Yeah.
and your tax is lower, and you get bonuses, so you end up with a lot more money. There's a lot more money in my bank than there used to be. But on the flip side, my apartment is really expensive. It's over £2,000 a month for a tiny little one-bed apartment. Food is really expensive. Gym memberships are really expensive. So you don't end up with, I don't know, like this incredible figure that you imagined.
I'm just laughing because me and Katie have both froze our gym for the summer, and the cost of freezing the gym is the same price that I would pay to have a gym in the UK, which just makes me...
It's just, to put it into perspective, we pay over £70 a month for a gym membership.
Which is, yeah, the kind of high-end gym that you would pay in the UK.
No, but this is like the cheap
It is a great gym though, we do like our gym.
All the different things out here, like you might want to join a club and you think, oh, I'll go to the same thing that I used to do in the UK, but here it's like 4 times the price. So there are a lot of swings and roundabouts when it comes to the wage out here. Generally speaking, we are financially much better off being here, and maybe that's why we've been so tempted to re-sign for longer.
Maybe we should do like apartment tours on our next video.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are very lucky that our apartments where we live, because Hong Kong is such an overpopulated place, you tend to live in giant high-rises. They are like huge communities. You get pools and gyms, and we both live on streets where there are restaurants, and everything is there provided for you, restaurants and stores. So it's a great lifestyle to have.
Another reason, a perk why you might want to teach internationally is there are more opportunities that we've spotted for promotion, because a lot of teachers in the UK, once they get themselves into a leadership position, they're where they want to be. They kind of bed down and they stay there and they don't move from that job, and they might be there for 20 years, 30 years. In Hong Kong, it seems as though people move on a lot more. You might have more opportunities to get a phase leader job or a year leading job or a subject lead job, because people move on. I've been in Hong Kong for 2 years, and next year I'm going to be the English coordinator of my school and a year group lead, just because those jobs became available and I kind of proved myself and I applied for them and got them. In the UK, perhaps that would have taken me 5-6 years of grafting to get.
So I think in the UK, if you're an NQT, you're expected to take on subject lead roles or a wider role in your school.
Yeah.
But I think often you kind of get whatever's left, so it's kind of like, oh, can you please do PSHE or RE, and that's kind of maybe something that not everyone wants to do, so you might do it for a few years and then work your way up, and to find yourself in a maths lead or an English lead role is quite difficult. So I remember in my previous school I had to work for 2-3 years before I became a computing coordinator. As soon as I moved to Hong Kong, it was great because there was a space, so within a few months I was already computing coordinator for the entire primary school.
If you are a bit of a go-getter and you are someone who likes to try and climb as soon as possible in a new job, maybe teaching internationally would be really good for you, because it's such a good challenge to try and climb earlier.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to say is it's definitely not just a career break. It's not like, oh, those 2 years I'm in Hong Kong are a write-off. It's definitely a smart career move.
Definitely.
There's something on your CV that you can take back to the UK. I think if you've seen our previous videos, you know that we always try and comment or reply to every comment that we get. So definitely this is a subject that we're so like evangelical about. We want to spread the word how amazing our teacher work-life balance is in Hong Kong. So if you've got questions specific to Hong Kong, we will definitely answer them.
Let's have a
and
chat.
If you've got any questions just more broadly about international teaching, we'll give you a hand as well.
We are for teachers.
Bye!